Xerxes was born into power, but power alone does not create a ruler. As the son of Darius the Great, Xerxes grew up inside the royal court of Persia, surrounded by wealth, discipline, and the belief that kings ruled by divine order. From an early age, he was trained to see the empire as a living system that required strength, balance, and absolute loyalty. When Darius died in 486 BC, Xerxes inherited not only the throne but also unresolved conflicts and towering expectations. Many questioned his readiness, yet his royal bloodline and careful grooming placed him firmly in command. Xerxes understood that a king's authority depended on swift action, and hesitation could invite chaos. His early reign would be defined by the need to prove himself, not just to his subjects, but to history itself. Soon after becoming king, Xerxes faced dangerous rebellions in Egypt and Babylon. These regions had long histories of independence and resistance, and they tested the authority of the new ruler. Xerxes responded with decisive and often brutal force, crushing revolts and removing local privileges that threatened central control. These actions revealed his belief in order above all else. To Xerxes, unity was non-negotiable, and mercy could be mistaken for weakness. By restoring stability, he secured the heart of the empire. But at a cost. His reputation began to shift from a successor of a great king to a ruler feared for his intolerance of defiance. Yet within Persia, these actions reinforced the image of a strong king chosen by destiny. With internal threats eliminated, Xerxes turned his attention westward to Greece. The memory of Persian defeat at Marathon still lingered, a stain on imperial pride left from his father's reign. For Xerxes, invading Greece was not only about conquest, but about restoring honor and asserting dominance. Greece represented disorder, fragmented city-states, refusing to submit to imperial rule. Preparations for the invasion were massive and unprecedented. Xerxes mobilized troops from across the empire, including Persians, Medes, Egyptians, and Indians. Engineers built bridges across the Hellespont and carved canals through solid rock. This was more than a military campaign. It was a demonstration of imperial will, meant to show that nature itself bent before the great king. The invasion of Greece began with overwhelming force, and early victories seemed to confirm Xerxes' confidence. At Thermopylae, Persian troops faced fierce resistance from a small Greek force, led by Spartan King Leon. Though the Persians ultimately prevailed, the cost was higher than expected. Naval battles at Artemisium further slowed the advance. These encounters revealed something Xerxes had underestimated: Greek resilience. The Persians relied on numbers and authority, while the Greeks fought for independence and survival. The campaign pressed on, but cracks began to appear. Supply challenges, unfamiliar terrain, and determined resistance slowly weakened the sense of inevitable victory that had surrounded the invasion from the start. The turning point came at the Battle of Salamis. Confident in his fleet, Xerxes chose to confront the Greeks in narrow waters, a decision that proved disastrous. Greek ships, smaller and more maneuverable, exploited the terrain and shattered the Persian navy. From a throne overlooking the sea, Xerxes watched his forces collapse. The defeat did not end the war immediately, but it changed everything. The image of the invincible great king was broken. Xerxes withdrew to Persia, leaving his generals to continue the fight. The campaign that began as a display of absolute power ended as a lesson in strategic miscalculation and the limits of empire. In his later years, Xerxes retreated from military ambition and focused on monumental construction projects, leaving behind grand palaces and inscriptions that celebrated divine kingship. Yet his reign ended quietly and violently. In 465 BCE, he was assassinated in a palace conspiracy, killed by members of his own court. History remembered Xerxes, largely through the eyes of his enemies, especially Greek historians who portrayed him as arrogant and cruel. Modern scholars offer a more balanced view, seeing a complex ruler shaped by empire, expectation, and belief in destiny. Xerxes was neither a simple tyrant nor a failed king. He was a man who commanded the greatest empire of his age, and learned, too late, that power alone does not guarantee legacy. As the story of Xerxes comes to an end, what remains is not just the tale of a lost war, but the portrait of a ruler caught between destiny and human limitation. He commanded the greatest empire of his age, ruled lands that stretched across continents, and believed deeply in a divine order that placed him at the center of the world. Yet his campaign against Greece revealed a timeless truth of history. Power without understanding can lead even the mightiest ruler into failure. Xerxes was not defeated because his empire was weak, but because ambition blinded him to the strength of those who fought for freedom rather than obedience. Over time, his image was shaped by enemies, legends, and exaggeration, turning him into a symbol of arrogance instead of a complex king. When we look beyond the myths, we see a ruler who upheld order, enforced unity, and struggled under the weight of inherited expectations. Xerxes' legacy reminds us that history is rarely fair, often written by the victors and always shaped by perspective. In the end, his life stands as a powerful lesson about leadership, pride, and the fragile line between greatness and downfall.